the farmers' pockets as production incentive. In a few years' time, we'll be self-sufficient. We don't have to put the money in the Indonesian pockets or Malaysian pockets. Indian farmers will get the money. Then compress the market chain. Enhance the share of the farmer in the end price by compressing the market chain, allowing logistics and massive investments, because the capital formation agriculture is declining in India. You cannot grow a sector and enhance incomes without investment and infrastructure. And allow exports to be tapped effectively, give incentives. We can easily increase our exports by another $100 billion in agriculture. We are messing up. So this is necessary but not sufficient. A lot more needs to be done. But without this happening, you cannot really modernize agriculture and give farmers a decent income.
All right. So now you've given an overall view of what you perceive these three farm laws to be. And your view is that they are liberating the farmers because they are giving the freedom and everything. Now let's take one thing at a time. If the small farmer who has 1 acre and 2 acres of land, the farmer has this harvest, what is happening in the current context is the farmer is at most able to sell it to the trader who is accessible to that farmer in that particular vicinity. Thereby, the trader is the one who is actually buying this. So today it is already happening that the private traders are operating in these markets, even outside of the APMC gambit. And that is by far how the small farmers are able to sell their produce. So the new farm laws are not going to change that behavior, because they're saying now any trader with a PAN card, or anybody for that matter with a PAN card, no registration, no license. I understand that the license Raj that you spoke about has massive corruption, which has derailed the development when it comes to the farmers' problems. But in the current context, even after the farm laws, anybody with just a PAN card, no regulation, no license, will go and do the same level of exploitation with the farmer, the small farmer. It's not changing. How is the farm law is going to address that issue?
I'll explain to you, Suresh. Two things. Today, typically, the trader that buys the produce is a commission agent come the lender. He is the one who gives money to the farmer. And because he has lent money, and because apart from these informal sources of credit, the farmer does not have any source, and despite all the tall talk of all these governments and all these parties currently in power or currently in opposition, they never bother to build a decent credit system for the farmer. 75% of the farmers depend on informal credit. Most of the creditors, they are these commission agents who are also traders. I borrowed from you, and I know in perpetuity I have to depend on you and not somebody else. I have no other recourse. The farmer is forced to sell, often on terms favorable to the trader. Now, two things will happen with liberalization. One, not one trader, but multiple traders will come. If contract farming comes in, for instance, they will ensure that there is no worry about credit. You don't have to borrow from anybody. They'll give you input credit. They'll give you inputs, in fact, not because they love the farmer, not because of the charity in their heart, but because they want to do a better business, procure more, do more business, make more profits. The farmer benefits and the company benefits. Three, once transport and trading restrictions across the borders are removed, in economics, there is economic law of 101 on commodity trading and pricing. If a commodity is transportable and tradable, everybody doesn't have to transport and trade. If 3 people out of 100 transport and trade, prices equalize. Right now, because transportability and tradability are not there, prices are unequal. The farmers are not able to discover the prices. In 2012, in Andhra Pradesh, combined Andhra Pradesh, the price of BPT, a variety of rice which is normally consumed in the southern states, in fact, most parts of India, it is a fine rice. Somehow we are fond of fine rice. That was sold at 750 rupees, paddy I'm talking about, not rice, 750 rupees a bag. A bag is 74 kgs. The price was depressed because there was a glut in the market. In the neighboring states of Karnataka and Maharashtra, the price was 1200 rupees. The government imposed a restriction on transport and sale, banned it, and therefore our farmers could not take advantage of that price. Then I launched a movement across the parties. Thousands of us went on Padayatras from Kurnool district of Andhra Pradesh, Rayalaseema today, to Karnataka, Raichur district, and from Nizamabad district of then Andhra Pradesh, today's Telangana, to Nanded district of Maharashtra, and sold these stocks, small sachets we carried. Obviously, I could not carry a bag of rice or something, or bag of paddy. And I violated the restrictions, and I said, you'd arrest me if you dare. They did not, of course, dare to arrest me. And the moment we did that, within 10 days, the prices were equalized because the restrictions became inoperative. It's not that every farmer went and sold. Small or big, everybody got the benefit of the price. So the moment you allow free movement and free trade, price discovery will be real and genuine, and they equalize. And the consumers also benefit. Once you allow aggregation and processing and storage, even when there is a shortage, the stored product will come into the market, the price will be moderated. When there is a glut, part of it goes for consumption, demand will pick up because part of it will go for storage, therefore prices will again moderate to the benefit of the farmer. World over, you take United States, you take Britain, every country, there's not a country on earth, except North Korea and the like. There's not a country on earth which imposes restrictions on storage, transport, and sale of food grains or food products. It's absurd. It is stupid. It is illogical. It's anti-farmer.
Right. So I think you mentioned quite a few things. So I've actually noted it down as you were saying. So the 2012 incident that you mentioned, I think that is commendable what you did, that you went against the government's norms, which was to restrict the trade, and took out that procession. I know at that time as well. And just to add, the point that I was trying to make earlier, setting up the whole context of how democracy is undermined, had you done this now in the current context, you would have definitely been stopped by the police, barbed wired, water fenced, dug up, the highways would be dug up. It is under these circumstances that farmers are being subjected to operate, which is totally uncalled for.
Suresh, let
And
us keep sentiment and politics out of it, go into economic issues. What is good for the farmers? What is not good for the farmers?
Yes, absolutely. The only point is what you did then also was to get economic benefits for the farmers.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And today what is happening is also the farmers are fighting for their economic development, but there are restrictions. And that is the cost of democracy that we are paying because we are not speaking out enough. But back to the point, and you also said farmers, the price discovery will happen because more and more players will operate. I think that's a wonderful point that you brought out. The standing committee report in 2019 that was submitted in the parliament had a very wonderful suggestion. And this was, again, like you said, discussed over years after year. But the suggestion was something we had already seen in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and I believe you're also a strong advocate of that, which was the concept of Raitu Bazaar, or what they call as Gramin Hats. So the plan was to implement a Gramin Hat per every single panchayat. We have over 6 lakh villages, and each one of these villages will come under a certain panchayat. If you create a Gramin Hat, the farmers will take their produce or reduce their transportation cost. The traders will come to this market, and hence the farmers will get their bargaining power because now they are a collective, and then they will be automatically able to do the price discovery, and the traders can also operate. So this is a suggestion given by the parliament itself. And this is a beautiful suggestion. There's another important suggestion that they said.
Wait, Suresh,
yeah.
1 second.
Yeah.
Now, what prevented all these parties and governments across the country, because all these parties were in power in all states sometime or the other.
You're right.
What prevented them from doing it so far?
Absolutely.
Why did they fail? Your notion that government, this is the whole problem. Government will establish the farmers' markets in each village. Government will ensure that the price will be there for the farmer. Government will guarantee. It is a disaster. Let the government do its job well, because this is essentially an anti-market, pro-government view. On the one hand, we are criticizing government every day for their failings, for their corruption, failure to regulate. And then we're trusting the government and saying, let the government do everything. Nobody else needs to do anything. All
Right.
that I'm saying is the government is incapable of doing it. In
Right.
a mission mode for some time, in some places they may do, but they can never do it universally on an enduring basis. Never. There's not a single example in the history of the world. Let
Right.
all of us, what is market? Suresh, if you are convinced, if you are satisfied, if you think there is money and you can do a fair business, you will enter. I will enter. Somebody will enter. 1,000 people will enter. Not because they love the farmer, not because of the charity in their hearts, but because they want to make a profit and they want to sustain a business. Farmer produces not because he wants to feed the country, because he wants to feed his family. Farmer needs a price. The entrepreneur needs the raw material. The processor requires the industrial mechanism for value addition. Everybody does his business or her business in order to advance in life. And that's how
Absolutely.
economy prospers. This notion that all business is bad, it is dirty, corporate is a sinful word, government is noble, government is pious, you must trust the government is a disaster. That's what
Yes.
led India to this crisis. Let the government do its job well. Rule of law, infrastructure, basic amenities, quality school education, healthcare. In all these, Indian governments are spectacularly bad. And you want to burden them with many more things which they anyway cannot do or not able to do.
Right. No, you're absolutely right that the government is the reason why the farmers in this situation. There is absolutely no two ways about it. The point I'm trying to make is here government, we are not talking about centralized government, we are talking about local governments, the panchayat, the district collectors. And you were a district collector yourself. And I remember this incident where you happened to narrate when you worked with the ITC guys and ensured that the farmers get their maximum produce. So you use the current system that was there back in the day when you were the collector because you are accountable, you are transparent, and you wanted a fair price for the market. So you use the existing system. It is the same existing system. If you have necessary checks and balances, then you can
Suresh,
make them work. That's
Suresh,
point number
how
one.
come no other collector used it and no other government did it?
I'll come to it. I'll come to it. There are
See,
incidents also that have
no, not
happened
not not
as
in.
recent as 2018.
If the governments are doing their job, why are the farmers in their distress?
No,
You are saying government is
I
failing.
gave you an
Let the
example.
government do the job.
Right, right. No, I gave you an example where
That
we are
model will
saying
not work. The
it,
charity or the goodwill of an
no,
officer, the heroism of a public official, and the entrepreneurship and foresight of a leader are not sufficient. You have
yes,
to involve the whole society. That's what the market is.
yeah, absolutely. You have to involve the whole society. You have to involve the private companies. There is nothing wrong about involving private companies or the corporates or anybody else who wants to play this game in the markets. The problem is you don't enforce regulation. You don't enforce transparency. You don't enforce accountability. That is where you are putting too much trust on the private companies to say that they will come in and they will operate in a way that is transparent, that is accountable. And you yourself said earlier, they are there to make businesses. And I'll give you an example. PepsiCo, which is one of the leading contract companies in our country, when they entered a contract with West Bengal farmers who are growing potatoes in like tens and thousands of acres, which again is an issue that we can go into where contract farming is forcing them to do monocropping at the cost of the soil
Who
and
forced
their
them? Who forced them
everything.
at the point of a gun?
No, that's not how it works, right? The
They
company
get a
comes in.
price, therefore they produce it.
Yes,
You give
you're
better price for
absolutely
another
right.
crop. Don't give farmers bhashans about environment. You give a
No, you don't
price,
have to.
they will do it.
Yes, absolutely. The point I'm trying to make is their PepsiCo did not operate with the small farmers directly. They went through middlemen, they went through vendors. And these vendors are again using the same exploitation because there was no transparency established. So to your point, sir, if there was enough transparency, if the contracts were registered, if somebody was monitoring what's going on, then we could have wished for what you are saying, where the price discovery would happen and the farmers would get their remuneration.
Suresh,
And
I am
that is the
all in
point.
favor of two things. There must be
Yeah,
registration. There
yeah,
must be transparency.
yeah,
People like you and I must be able to examine the contracts and then make the public aware. I'm completely in
exactly,
favor. And this law
exactly.
provides for that.
That law
This
is
law
not
provides for
providing.
registration. This law provides for registration of contracts.
No, the
Please go
registration,
through it.
the registration is happening. The registration is happening, but there is no legal recourse for the farmers with the excuse that the courts are expensive.
It does. No, you're mistaken. First of all, courts are expensive and inaccessible. Let's face it. There are
That's
3 crore
fine.
cases pending. All this pretense that a farmer can go to court and get justice in India, I don't understand from which world you're coming.
We
They
are
said, listen to me. They said the
what?
subdivisional magistrate, the RDO, then the district magistrate. I was the district magistrate. I was the SDM. Any day, an SDM and a district magistrate are far more responsive and sympathetic and faster than a court. Even if the court is exceptional, by the nature of things, court cannot be fast. And the court is not precluded. You can still go to court. And the government said, if you have any problem in the law, there's confusion, we'll bring that in. So we are changing goalposts. See, the issue is why are the farmers even today raising potato? I don't know if you're aware. 2 things let me bring to your notice.
Mm,
The blue line here is the potato price. Potato price is holding for the consumer, for the farmer, both. There is no dramatic fluctuation. Whereas, where there are restrictions on transport and trade, and most of all on storage, onion, for instance, restrictions are imposed on trade, there's a production shock, there's a storage restriction imposed. See the dramatic fluctuation in prices. You always hear of onion prices going up to 50 rupees and becoming 2 rupees. You never heard of potato price like that. 2, India has about 8% of the total perishable commodities cold storage capacity. The 45 crore or 450 million tons of production, only about 6 or 7 crore tons of cold storage. 80% of it is held by potato. 3, farmers, lakhs of them for 30, 40 years are continuing the contracts. I'm sure what you say is right. There are many distortions because India is an imperfect market, no question about it. But on the whole, because there is a better price, farmers are going. Nobody is forcing them to go for that.
right, right.
How to make it even better? How to make it even more sensible? That should be our approach, not completely stop this, because when you stop this, what is the option available? Absolute poverty and penury and distress in agriculture.
Right, right. No, you're absolutely right. I think you and I are both agreeing to the fact that there have to be monitoring systems, there have to be regulatory systems, there have to be checks and balances that should be put in place. And I'm of the view that the farm laws are not doing enough to enforce those things. And I'll also tell you something about the contract farming that is happening today is that the contracts that are written, the farmers don't even understand what the contracts are because most of them are in English. Number 2, most of the contracts are not even written contracts, they are oral contracts because both the farmer and the contract companies fear that they might renege the contract because of certain other factors that they are not in full control of. And so most of them are happening orally. So even in this context, how can we enforce contract farming or rather create a framework for contract farming to operate without any regulations and so on and so forth?
Two
And the third
things.
point, sir.
Two things. Well, just let's take this.
Sure.
We can easily insist that the contract must be in a language that the farmer understands.
Exactly.
On the one hand, you are quite rightly concerned that it must be in a language that the farmer understands. On the other hand, you want the lawyers in a language that the people don't understand, the sections they invoke, the civil courts to take a role rather than administration take a role. We are very confused in what we are seeking. Let me complete. 2, the government has a duty through honest regulation to ensure that the contracts are not only in the language of the locality, but also are publicized and somebody is verifying. And the moment they are publicized in the local language, they know what is the contract offered in X village for Y crop, what is the contract offered in some other village. People keep fighting about that. And 3, people like you and I, we are not going to be silent. I have never been silent. And now we'll have a legal basis to continuously act. Today, we're acting in a dramatic manner to get small things done. Whereas tomorrow, on a sustained basis, on a mega scale, thousands of players, including the farmers' associations, they can actually go into these things and make things transparent. Look at the National Egg Coordination Committee. Look at the dairy cooperatives in India, or dairy system in India. They're working. Why are we afraid of collectivization, aggregation, processing, and proper business principles centered into agriculture? They're working. Where they're brought in. Dairy industry is a spectacular success in India
Right.
because instead of the old-fashioned traditional thing, we have an organized dairy system. All I'm arguing is we need such organized farming, organized linkage with industry and processing and market so that everybody benefits and things are transparent. You cannot
Yeah.
have this volatility of tomato being 50 rupees one day and 50 paise another day. It's a disgrace. Every country has tomato. Every country has tomato which is perishable. In Australia, America, it's not non-perishable. And you don't see a price fluctuation of 50 paise to 50 rupees. Only in India. Why? Because we completely have antiquated agriculture. We have to
Right.
modernize it for the sake of the farmer.
Right. No, you're right. Aggregation is the key for the small farmers to get the access to the markets and the bargaining power, which is why, again, I go back to the APMC 2017 Model Act, which the states have started to adopt. You will be, I don't know if you're following that, but the interstate restrictions that you had actually mentioned now no longer exist. They have eliminated that, and 22 states have so far adopted that under the current laws itself. There was no need for a farm law to
So
be introduced.
if all these are
Already
removed
done.
at one go without
Yeah,
any confusion, what's your complaint? You are saying removal of restrictions is good.
yeah,
APMC changes are good. If there is
right.
one at one go, if you remove all this so there's no confusion, what's the problem? And let me
I'm
tell you a
saying,
little bit let me tell you a little bit of
go
loss.
ahead, go ahead.
I discovered to my horror, APMC Act was amended in Andhra Pradesh long ago. It was never implemented. How? The bureaucracy has to frame rules. I myself was in the subordinate legislation committee in the Andhra Pradesh legislature, among other things, and I held hearings. I insisted on that. When I called the marketing fellows and others, we discovered that the entry barriers, despite the law, are so severe in practice, the amendments became ineffective, inoperative. So this nitpicking, pretending that we are doing over 40 years what you should do in 4 days, we have to stop that. The reason why India is lagging so far behind the rest of the countries, falling far behind its potential, is because we say many things, we never do them. There's neither administrative will nor administrative competence. You have to remove them wholesale, not a bit here, a bit there. And you have to ensure that the administration does not bring in regulations again to perpetuate their power and corruption through rules.
Right, right. No, an important part of the, as much as you detest the APMC mandis and the government way of functioning, an important amendment was brought in, which was to separate the regulatory board from the mandi board itself. Earlier, both of them were the same, which were sort of making this cartelization of the APMCs and, doing all kinds of things which are putting the farmer at risk. So even that has been amended. Now, to your point, I definitely agree that the government or the government infrastructure, the whole entire bureaucracy has a lot of issues in implementing those things. And my point is, and I think I'm sure you would agree at this point of the debate, that if we are bringing in private players without any scrutiny and regulations and any monitoring, they would also go down the same route and even worse, because I'll give you one example and then I'll let you comment. Today, we are seeing one big company, which the government heavily favors, has built tremendous, these huge amounts of storage silos throughout the country. And they have been doing so surreptitiously, secretly, for several years now. And we have also seen just a month ago where that same company has acquired 100 acres of land. And we have documents showing from the Haryana government, I can provide it to you right after this call, where they have given this land also at concession so that the storage silos can be built. Now, if somebody who is operating with such storage capacities, you can only imagine why they are investing so much, because tomorrow, when the time comes, they want to maximize their profits by putting in as much as they can store and then leverage the markets. Under these circumstances, if you have even removed the Essential Commodities Act, which, by the way, in the new farm laws, the government has no way to track who is storing how much, who is selling at what price, because there is national level integration of all these markets. So my point is, we have not built any of these systems. None of these systems exist today, but we are opening up everything without any scrutiny, without any regulations.
Suresh, you mixed up two issues. If somebody is acquiring the capability to store a lot more than others, the answer lies in others acquiring capability and competing on equal terms.
Yeah.
And if there are any barriers of entry for the others, we must fight that. And I'll be the first one to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand why the government should know who is buying where and who is selling where and so on and so forth. That's exactly what is wrong. Do you have in the United States such a situation? Does somebody, your Secretary of Agriculture at the national level or some other official at the state level, control who is selling what at what price? No. The American people will simply rise in revolt. Does it happen in Britain? No. France? No. Germany? No. Japan? No. No other country. Not even China. You want it to happen in India? I have enforced Essential Commodities Act, Suresh. You people are well-meaning, but you don't know what actually happens. You know the amount of corruption? The millers, my neighboring collector, when I was district magistrate in one district, she prevented the millers from my district from purchasing in her district. Why? Because she has a target. Her miller said, Madam, if they come and buy here, the price will go up. We cannot buy and we cannot then supply to you. You cannot procure. I called her and said, look, we are from All India Services. There's a country. And if the millers from another district don't come and buy, who are the people who are suffering? You are farmers. You have an obligation to the farmers. And there is one market and there is a law. You are violating the market principles. You are hurting your farmers. You're violating the law. You know what she said? JP, you have a deeper understanding of the philosophy, constitution, and propriety. All I care is I have a target. I have to fulfill it. Millers want it. I don't care. This is how, and she's a very honest lady, by the way. Very honest lady. The damage done to farmers in India is incalculable. In 1984, before probably you were born, I still remember vividly that those were the days of long staple cotton coming into country for the first time. Earlier, we were producing only short staple cotton. India had to import the long staple cotton from Egypt and elsewhere. Our farmers and our scientists did a remarkable job, starting with Dharwar cotton hybrid. India became one of the great producers of cotton. That year, the prices were actually rising. It was 800 earlier per quintal, which was low. It was going up to 15, 1600. We were all feeling good. At long last, after years of crop failure and losses, the farmers are getting a decent crop and the price is decent. You know what the Prime Minister of India then did? Global prices were ruling much higher. The Prime Minister said, we will buy at a higher price and import lakhs of bales to India. Without one bale being imported, within 24 hours, the farmer's price fell down to 800 rupees. This is how the laws were used. 2011, India had 83 million tons of food grain stocked, the world's largest country ever in history. Not merely that year, ever in history, only in government go-downs. The prices were plummeting because there was no demand. Globally, luckily for us, the price was ruling high. The government banned export of food grains. Irrational, uneconomical, anti-poor, anti-farmer. But then who is there to tell them? Then I had to summon all parties in Andhra Pradesh. Typically, the farmers know we are always resistant to change. The moment I said export is one of the options, we have to enhance the demand, he said, oh, export of food grains, nothing doing. Because I have credibility and I have the facts with me and I have logic. And every day I was monitoring and getting data in the country and across the world. I bullied them. They all listened to me. Went to the Prime Minister. I pushed him very hard. He accepted all the data. Then I said, why are you doing this? Then he called the RBI governor. I said, will you please do something? Though RBI has nothing to do with that because he needed some official document. At my request, RBI then produced a report. The food grains export ban on rice was lifted. Since then, India is the biggest exporter of food grains. The amount of damage done by the government by regulation, pretending to be friend of farmers, perhaps even genuinely believing in the farmers' welfare. I don't even question their motives. But your motives are irrelevant when you are unwise in your actions, when you don't understand the consequences of your actions. Our governments and our political parties hurt the farmers irretrievably, kept the farmers in penury. failed to do what they have to do. The real crisis of the farmers is not only about the farm pricing, education, healthcare in rural areas. The amount of money farmers have to spend, do you know what's happening there? They're desperate. What the government has to do, it is failing spectacularly. Where they have no business, they're intervening and regulating to the detriment of the farmers consistently. I can give you a million examples. Every village, there are examples. Every town, every crop, there are examples. Government is the problem, Suresh. You are somehow thinking still government is the solution.
No, what I'm saying is government is the problem. There is no doubt about it. But I'm saying the systems should be in place so that no matter what.
I'm all in favor.
Right.
Let us fight for that.
Yeah, exactly. And you also said something very interesting, that what is the problem if one company has the capacity to build the storages? What is the problem with that? Well, the problem is...
I said let 10 more people build.
Exactly.
Monopoly must be prevented. I'm all in favor. I said let 10 more people build. That is the answer.
Right. But that 10 more people, you cannot show favoritism to one company.
Whereas... So that's a different fight. Don't use the farmers' shoulders to fight your political or ideological battles.
This
has happened in 1991. No, let me intervene.
This is one statement, sir.
One second, Suresh. No, let me make a point.
In many of the debates that I have seen and the articles that you have written, I have seen this consistently. Anybody raising any issues against the farm laws or be it any other issue, somehow it is getting reduced to saying these are political battles or ideological battles.
No, these are not even political. These are ideological. No, let me give evidence. Let me give evidence. Let me give evidence. 1991, when economic reform out of compulsion was embarked much later than it should have been done, 13 years after China, an avowedly communist authoritarian country has begun. There was so much resistance. Farmers' shoulders were used. The people who opposed it pretended it was hurting farmers. A chap called Dunkel, nobody knew his name in the world, but in India, he became a household byword. He was the Director General of WTO. There was something called Dunkel Draft. I don't even know what that was. Dunkel Draft, the basic document about international trade, fair trade. This Dunkel Draft was the biggest issue in India. All the leftists who are fundamentally opposed to free market and they want government control, they used the farmers' shoulders and said, agriculture will collapse. Imports will dramatically increase. The reality is, agriculture and other commodities, production has increased. India, even today, despite reckless import of cooking oil and pulses, India has a significant surplus in agricultural trade globally, even today. And we can make it 5 times better, 10 times better. So somehow we create myths or frighten people. It's like, electricity is wonderful, but my God, if electricity comes, we'll all go into shock. No, take all the steps to insulate, but nobody wants a situation without electricity. Right. Our girls want freedom, but if they go out, my God, there'll be some gundas there harassing them. Therefore, let the girls stay there. No, let the girls go and enjoy the freedom that all the boys have, but let's take steps to ensure that there is an atmosphere of safety and security. It cannot be, my God, freedom is dangerous, therefore let's not give freedom.
Right. No, my point is, anytime we are raising any concerns, nowadays it's become more and more prevalent, and that is the danger that I'm trying to highlight to you, that these concerns should not be boxed into a leftist or a rightist or a capitalist or a socialist or somebody else.
I'm not bothered about labels, Suresh. I'm bothered about what benefits the farmers.
Exactly. And they are being raised only in the context of the farmers. Who's benefiting the farmers? Now, there are 2 things that I would like to mention here. You are saying that, yes, the government is the problem, and I'm fully in agreement with you. The problem, what you and I tend to disagree, is the regulation aspects. You're of the view that it should be free and fair, but the regulation should somehow be not existing. And I'll give you 2 examples.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
In all this discussion, is there one word saying that there should be no regulation?
No, you yourself said the regulation is killing. The regulation is killing. And that's the word.
Regulation is killing. I said fair and effective regulation. I used that expression. Please go back and watch the recording.
All right, I stand corrected. If that is the case, That's the point well taken. And that is exactly what we are trying to say, sir, that in the current context, we do not have those systems to prevent those capitalization and the
What
monopolization.
system do you
And I'll
want?
give you
What system do you
I'll give
want?
you one
No, tell
example.
me
I'll
what
give
is the
you one
answer.
example.
Tell me the answer. All the
The answer
critics, give me the answer. What is it you want?
the answer is, today, if somebody is buying these storages or trying to do business, all I want to know is a system to know exactly who is doing what. I don't want to know how much they invested, how much they are buying, how much they are selling, at what price. All I'm saying is, I want to be able to, at any given point in time, I should go to a particular website and get all the information to, if I want to review the contracts, I should be able to do it. If I want to review what price they are being sold at with some more information, I can file an RTI. I should be able to get that information. And this transparency is important, sir, and you will agree to that also, because we do not
Suresh,
want
all my
exploitation of
life
the
I
farmer.
fought, Suresh, all my life I fought for transparency.
Then you
Along with
should be
Aruna, I am
in
the
total
author of the
agreement.
Right to Information Act.
Yeah.
Along with many people, I've been fighting for fair regulation, genuine competition. That is self-evident. If you think government control is competition, you're wrong. Let the government do its job well. One of the jobs is transparency and accountability and genuine and fair and light regulation.
Yeah.
Light regulation.
The government
Not,
should get out of
and so
this.
far, government's regulation is totally expropriatory, intrusive, extremely negative in consequences.
So what I would suggest, sir, is bring the best of the minds together, create a regulatory system outside of the purview of the government, be it an independent body, which can look at these things. Now, I'll give you just two examples. In the US, which is supposedly the most free markets in the world that you could possibly find, the 2008, the spectacular collapse happened, where overnight the so-called too big to fail banks were completely ignored, despite raising alarms. And Mr. Raghuram Rajan himself had the first one to raise these alarms back in 2003-4, when he saw how the mortgage businesses were, booming without necessary checks and balances. So lack of a proper regulatory system, and the regulatory system has to catch up with the market innovation. Whenever that falls behind is what the 2008 happens. That's number one.
I completely agree. But the answer is not going to North Korea. Not becoming North Korea. Market system must operate and have adequate safeguards.
Yes,
that's exactly. All I am arguing. You are saying market system is potentially dangerous. Let's not allow the free markets.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
These laws are about free markets, period.
No. That's what I'm saying. These are free market with no regulations.
Who said that?
The farm laws themselves are saying. The farm laws themselves are saying. The farm laws.
Where does the farm law say there's no regulation? Pray tell me.
There is
contracts you have to register. There's a mechanism to go in appeal. There is an adjudicatory mechanism. So where is failure of regulation there?
I'll counter each one of them. In the regulatory system I'm referring to is when you are negotiating these contracts, for example, there is no mandate to say that these contracts have to be written contract. There is nothing in the farm laws.
Number two, if it's an oral contract, it's no contract at all. That means either the farmer need not supply and the buyer need not pay. So if you refuse to do that mutually, there's nothing that forces anybody.
Agreed. And
I can get the protection of law only when I want the protection of law. If I don't want to enter into a written contract, what can anybody on earth do?
Right, but when the farm laws are specifically saying about the contract farming,
a contract is null and void unless it's written on paper in this country.
Well, sir,
there's nothing we can do.
The only point I'm trying to make is I'm not trying to annoy you. I'm just trying to
I don't see. The problem is we are all changing the goalposts because we have some deep disquiet. I don't doubt at all the commitment to farmers. Commitment to farmers does not necessarily mean there is wisdom in our thinking. I want everybody to look at the facts, logic, evidence world over and in our own country.
Right.
Not some make-believe scenarios.
No, these are not make-believe. And the second example I was trying to give you is in the US market today, agriculture has been heavily monopolized. And the current government, the new government, is actually bringing in laws. They are in works already, and you can Google it up, or I can send you the links.
US,
Where
it is 1,000 level. India at 20 level. You're talking about problems at 1,000. Let India come
no,
to 100 level. I'll be very happy.
we just compared the free market in the US, right?
So you're saying free markets in US are failing, therefore India should not have free markets.
No, that's not what I'm
That's
saying.
the broad logic you are applying now.
No,
2008,
so
agriculture monopoly, Biden government is trying to change. Therefore, India should anticipate a problem 100 years later when India becomes super rich and therefore stop it now itself. I find this logic extremely troublesome.
I'm saying, sir, we should learn from them, not repeat the same mistakes.
By all means, we also should learn from Russia. We also should learn from Russia. We should also learn from North Korea and many other countries which have spectacularly failed and left their countries in misery.
All I'm saying, we need to have proper regulatory systems, proper
I'm
checks
with you, Suresh, but please overcome
and there are no
irrational fears.
No irrational fears. These are legitimate fears of even
I have given you real examples in my lifetime, what I have done. They're public knowledge. You are still not persuaded that the government has been detrimental to farm incomes consistently in India.
And this is why,
you don't want to see the reality that agriculture still has only 16 or 17% GDP. We are not able to really compress the market chain. We are not able to bridge the gap between towns and villages. Millions of people are forced to migrate to long distances. And then after the COVID crisis, we've seen the tremendous inhuman suffering that they endured. All this is because of agricultural crisis, because of rural crisis, not merely agriculture, rural crisis, because the crisis imposed by the government's failure to provide basic communities and education and healthcare. You were saying still the government's old-fashioned views, old-fashioned methods are the right ones, and any change is undesirable.
No, that's not what I said, and I'll repeat myself again. I'm not saying entry of these contract farming has been happening despite the government. What I'm trying to say is we need to have proper checks and balances in place. In the current system, we do not have them.
Pray tell me what are required. I'll definitely look into them. No, we don't have to waste the viewers' time. I will very happily examine the specific proposals that you and others have in mind. And I will, to the extent that my voice is there, I will lend voice to those ideas if I find them pragmatic and reasonable.
There you go. That's exactly why we need sane voices.
Correspondingly, I want you all to stop opposing market entry, price discovery, fair competition, integration of the production, transport, grading, packaging, storage, processing, and finding export markets. And removal of absolutely unjust barriers that have kept farmers in penury in this country.
Right, absolutely. I'll just conclude with three things. Again, going back to the parliamentary committee report, because just like you said, I strongly believe in parliamentary democracy. And these are the three things that have been said which can break the shackles, the ones that you mentioned. One is strengthening of FPOs, strengthening of the Grameen Hats, the Raitu Bazaars, and through them, we bring the farmers into the mix of things, have them get more market share, and operate in a completely transparent and accountable manner. And before I let you go, the one last thing, how would you see the stalemate? Right now, we are at a deadlock. The government is not refusing to listen to the farmers, and the farmers are not backing out. So what do you think in a minute or two is the way forward? And I'll add mine, and then we can conclude from that point.
First, Suresh, these are necessary, but they are not sufficient. The government must humbly acknowledge that. The pretense that these will automatically transform agriculture is wrong. Second, we all must realize that the bulk of the farmers in India, they are not protesting. It is one pocket. There are reasons. The mandis function pretty well in Punjab and Haryana, and the mandi leaders are very influential socially and economically and politically. Naturally, when the system is functioning well from their point of view, and they have leaders who have tremendous clout, they feel loyal to them because their monopoly, after all, is going to be broken. Two, essentially, these are rice and wheat farmers. Rice and wheat are not the future of India. We have a glut there. The shortages in India are in fruits, vegetables, eggs, milk, meat, fish. That's why the prices are rising. That's why there are shortages, and food habits, quite rightly, are changing. Wholesome nutrition demands that. The old-fashioned notion of overproducing rice and wheat in our most fertile areas is a very wrong idea. Three, the government, if I were to advise the government, I would ask them to humbly say that this is necessary for the following reasons, but it's not sufficient. There are many things where we all have failed spectacularly, and the following things are necessary, and we'll start doing the following things. Immediately, what the government can do is ensure 100,000 crores pledge loans in the current year to the farmers so that the storage is possible, and enhance the storage capacity, because these loans are safe. The banks will not be in danger. The stock is there as security. If even that you cannot do, your commitment to farming is bogus. Two, you're already receiving about 30,000 crore plus as import duty on cooking oil. You add also import duty significantly to pulses. The 40,000 crores or so you'll get, you distribute to the farmers as production incentive for these very crops to make sure that in the next 3-4 years, Indian farmers can produce enough so that India is self-sufficient. Our prices will rise, our income will go to our farm. These are two straight away in the hands of the government today. Three, go in for retail chains, which will bring in trillions of rupees, thousands of billions of rupees. We desperately need massive investment in packaging, grading, transport, storage, processing, retailing, and in opening up export markets. The policy Manmohan Singh government already brought in, the present government is very lukewarm. They're not officially opposing it, but they're not allowing it to happen. Then what will happen is the farmer, who is only getting about, on an average, about 25 rupees on a sale price of 100 rupees, he will get 50, 60 rupees. There'll be compression of the market chain. And these companies operate on high volumes, low margins, and they go for value addition, and they open export markets, because there is no way on a small scale you can open up the export markets. World over, they fiercely protect their agriculture. They impose phytosanitary barriers. Only big companies with money, with technology, with management practices, with global reach can actually do that. You do that. And there are many things you talked about rightly. FPOs, cooperatives, you strengthen them. These laws do not preclude them. The government must do that. Nobody is stopping that. But because the government is not doing that, don't stop these laws. Let the government do that. And let the government enhance the farm credit and do research better. Because the agriculture universities, which are doing remarkable research earlier, they are now starved of funds, and they are becoming like any other university in India, make-believe degrees, etc. We are not getting the best technology. For instance, the genetically modified foods or genetically modified seeds like BT cotton, Indian government has failed spectacularly. When the private sector is willing to offer technology, we refuse to take it at the right time. Now we are complaining. Be in the forefront of these technologies. Put money and the best brains so that Indian farmers get the best advantage of technology. Government has a lot to do. Start doing that. Lay a roadmap. Do the first two things. This will dissipate. I have absolutely no doubt about it. This is not an all India thing. If there is cold in Delhi, let's not sneeze in Hyderabad. India is a vast continental country of 1.38 billion population. If a small pocket of India, there are some concerns, let us address them and let's move on.
Thanks for the comments, but I beg to differ on that point. The Punjab, it's not just the Punjab farmers protesting in 2016, 2017, 18, 19, consistently. Farmers in Nashik, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh. In fact, you probably would remember 7 farmers were killed as part of the protests.
But I don't hear Nashik and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and AP and Telangana and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu and Kerala and Orissa farmers now rising.
If you want specifics, I can also provide it to you. The Tamil Nadu farmers were stopped from taking the trains. The farmers from Maharashtra and Odisha and Telangana were stopped at the UP borders. So there have been, and this is exactly the point.
I don't know which farmers really wanted to go and who were stopped.
This
I
is
am in touch
exactly
with farmers every single day. Thousands of
I'm
calls
sure,
I'm receiving every
I'm
single
sure
day.
you, sir. I'm
And I
sure
have
you.
enormous data at the granular level of each farmer. So no, we can all believe in our own
I'm I'm trying
our
to
own
clarify.
version of facts.
Right. I'm trying to clarify this for the sake of our viewers, our listeners, that this is not just a myopic view of what the Punjab and Haryana farmers are.
Nobody said myopic. You said myopic, Suresh.
No, yeah,
There is
I'm
a
saying,
local concern.
yeah.
Telangana, the government is supporting the farmers' agitation, but there's no farmers' agitation. Maharashtra, the government is supporting farmers' agitation, but there's no farmers' agitation. Suffices.
Right. And I'm telling you, there are protests happening, but for everybody to congregate in Delhi, and only then it will be given
It's
a
not
status
necessary.
of
And I don't
protest.
believe in this kind of protest anyway. I believe there's a different way of doing it, but that's a different issue on a different.
And that's all right. We can agree to disagree on that note. But I think there's one other point that you mentioned. I think I'm just losing my thought. Yes, on the regulations aspect, we have a document to show you exactly what kind of regulations we need if we have to bring in these kind of sweeping changes. And we would like you to add your voice to
I'll be happy to go
sort
through
of
that and do whatever is required.
and enforcement. And also, I would urge you to, sir, please speak up more on the need for ensuring parliamentary democracy, which is very scarce these
You know,
days. And as much as we want,
Suresh,
no,
has
as much
anybody
as we
done more in the last 25 years to fight for democracy and democratic institutions in India? Has any voice been more forceful, more consistent, more logical, more problem solving, more a part of the solution in India than mine in the past 25 years? You're preaching to the converted. I'll continue to fight, but I do not mix up issues.
No, don't mix up issues, but I urge you to keep raising your voice to ensure that we have the functioning parliamentary democracy. And with that, sir, I thank you very, very much for giving me this time and patiently hearing me out and giving your opinions also. We apologize to the viewers or people who have been sending a lot of comments. Maybe there's another time and place for this to be more interactive.
No, I would have been happy to take questions today, but now there is no time because I have another event scheduled.
Right, sure. So with that, sir, maybe we'll do one more question and answer kind of a thing with the viewers only. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you very much to, I think, Shivaji, Lavanya, and I believe Kishore for arranging this meeting today.
Thanks, Suresh. Thanks, JPR.
Great, Suresh. I appreciate your passion for the farmers. And let's hope that something positive and something productive will happen for the country. I wish you all the best.
Thank
you, JPR. Thank you, Suresh. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.